Hello and welcome again. This is Lino Tadros, and finally, after almost 10 different videos for Semantic Kernel, we start getting into the fun part, which is plugins. Very effective, very important piece of Semantic Kernel is to be able to add plugins, your own code decorated by a specific attribute, for instance, and be able to ask a question, and that question can actually force the LLM to choose one of your tools to get called, which are called plugins for Semantic Kernel. So let me go ahead and show you how to do that. All right, we are back in Visual Studio Code, and now I'm going to create my project number 9. Control-Shift-P. Oops, Control-Shift-P, there you go. And I'm going to create a brand new project, and we will go see what a console app is all about. We'll call this one 09, we'll call it plugins. Should be a good name for it. We'll create the folder, we'll add it to the solution, and there we go. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to add my NuGet packages, and to do it really fast, I'm just going to open up the project and I'm going to bring in the 4 different NuGet packages that I need, the configurations and the configuration JSON. I also need Semantic Kernel, and I need Azure OpenAI. You can do this, of course, with OpenAI, with any other. This is a Semantic Kernel feature, so I just happen to choose to use Azure OpenAI for right now. All right, the other thing I'm going to need, of course, like we've done before, I need my app settings. Let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to say app settings.json. And in here, we'll bring in my model ID. I'm going to use GPT 4.1, put the endpoint that we have used before, my API key, and also the deployment name. You don't need it because it's the same as model ID, but sometimes they are different. So I'm actually just adding the model ID and the deployment ID as well. I'm going to save these files. There you go. And my project as well. Once I say save, it will bring in everything, all the NuGet packages. So I think we're in pretty good shape at that point. All right, the only thing left is for me to modify the program.cs to get this to work. So before I show you anything new, let me just bring in a working copy of the code that we used all the way in the beginning of these videos for the startup. Let me remove my plugins from here. So there is nothing new in here, okay? So I'm just doing the config to open up the app settings.json to get all my values for the model ID, the endpoint, and the API key. And notice here for the kernel, I'm doing a kernel.createBuilder, and I was able to add one service only, and that's the only one I can add using it this way. So I'm going to say add Azure OpenAI chat completion, and I'm going to go ahead and build right away. I couldn't actually come after this add Azure OpenAI chat completion and add another service. If I want to use multiple service, I won't be able to using it the dot notation for the create builder. That's something to put in mind as well, because we're going to have to change that code. Everything else stays the same. I'm creating my history, passing my system message, my chat completion service being retrieved using the get required services, passing in my prompt execution settings, everything like in before. So the question now is, what happens if I would like to actually add plugins? So we'll add several ones, but we have to start with one. Let's go ahead and do something very simple for plugins. So the best way to do this is to go into my folder, the 09 plugins. I'm going to create a brand new folder inside of there. Let's go ahead and call it plugins, for instance. You can call it again whatever you want. And inside of there, I'm going to create my first plugin, and we're going to call it, let's say, get date time. Get date time. This is usually the one we start with to explain how plugins, but I'm going to create more complicated ones in a few minutes. All right. So there is my get date time, and let me show you what this file will look like. So I'm going to create a namespace called my plugins. There is my public class, get date time. And notice my function in here is called get current date time. That is the function that I want to make it a Semantic Kernel function to be able to act as a plugin. The only thing you need to do is to using the Microsoft Semantic Kernel in here. All right, and notice there is an attribute before the function. This is an important thing. You have to have an attribute called KernelFunction and give it a name like get current date time. That will be the name of the function. Think of it as the name of the tool that the LLM has access to call whenever it wants to, okay? If you take a look in here, this is a very simple one that says get current date time. By the way, if I don't have this plugin, for instance, and I actually run the code that I've shown you before, and it's asking me for a prompt, and I said, hey, what is the time in Orlando right now, for instance, or in San Diego, or whatever. it will come back and saying, I have no idea, I do not have access to current events or the current time. You might want to actually create a plugin, or you might want to go to a website that actually can tell you what the time is right now. So unfortunately, the models that we're working with has been trained a long time ago, and it doesn't have real-time information that you can ask. But if I create a function called get current date time, and I can tell it to return datetime.now, and I'm passing this actually also with the time zone, so it understands the difference between Orlando or Los Angeles and Europe and so on and so forth. So it knows actually about the time zone because I asked that in the string coming back from the date time. So if I take a look at this, folks, guess which line in here is the most important line for an LLM to work with a plugin? It's line number 9. This guy is extremely important, okay? So this is the one that you want to spend your time on to give it a very, very good description, because this is what the LLM, no matter what it is going to look at to find out if you are worthy of calling you or not. So if I see description hello world in here, you will never get called when I ask for time. So the description here is extremely, extremely important for the LLM to know what do you do? What is this plugin for? Alrighty. So I'm going to say get my current date time with time zone. So this is anytime the LLM thinks that, oh, I need a current time with a time zone, and you raise your hand saying, hey, my description tells you that this is what I'm here for, then the LLM has the option, of course, to call you if it wants to, and does that, okay? Sometimes problems happen is that you have two plugins and both of them have the same description. Now you're asking for problems, okay? So make sure you understand that you have to be very clear in your description so you don't confuse the LLM and having a problem figuring out which one should be called because they're very, very close. That's how plugins start causing problems using AI applications and so on. Also for the return, you can actually tell it again the description of the return. I'm supposed to return date time formatted as, and you can put whatever format you want in here. I'm actually using for the day, month, and then notice I'm using the ZZZ for the time zone, which is very important, including the hour, minutes, and seconds, and everything inside of here. So again, the most important is the decoration of the kernel function so that I can tell semantic kernel, hey, this function is available. It's not just a regular function, it's one that semantic kernel will need to broadcast to the LLM so the LLM knows that there are this specific function available for it to call it if it needs something regarding its description in here. Make sense? And the second most important thing, of course, is the description. This have to be very clear and very precise what exactly your function is supposed to do, because this is what the LLM is going to look at. Sounds good? And I think before I actually start making modification to the program.cs so semantic kernel knows that this guy is available, it's a good idea to actually show you what the problem is. So let me go ahead and cd out of this and go to the 09 for the plugins, and we'll do a .NET run. Alrighty, we'll say, oops, .NET run. There you go. We'll run this program. I'm going to actually ask it what time is it in Orlando right now. Oh, hello world. Did I actually do a hello world? Let me see. Well, it actually would be very nice if I save the file. So this is hello world is because the program.cs used to have one line only for console.writeLine. So you'll have to do a control S. Otherwise, we're running the previous code. All right. Let's go ahead and do a .NET run again. And now hopefully this one will work and it will ask me for the user prompt to be able to be entered. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. We're using GPT 4.1. And I'm going to say, what time is it in Orlando? And notice if I ask a question like this, look what it says. It says, Orlando, Florida is in the Eastern time zone. If you tell me your current time or time zone, I can calculate the time difference. So it has no idea what we are actually trying to do. As of now, blah, blah, blah. But again, I did not get the time because the system does not have a way to be able to figure out the time. At least it's giving 4.1 is actually pretty nice. If you go back to like GPT 3.5 or before that, it doesn't answer any of this. It just says I have no access to this information. But at least 4.1 and GPT-5, if you don't have a plugin to get you the exact current time in a specific city or country or whatever, it at least trying to help you out, tell you where to go get the time, but it doesn't still answer the question. Make sense? All right, so now let's go ahead and fix that problem. All right, let's go back up in the code and show you where the problem is. The problem here is between line 25 and 27. If you're going to use a kernel.createBuilder, it's assuming that you're going to be using only one service. So always remember the word service and service providers and iService solution inside of the kernel itself, okay? But in this case in here, I'm going to actually use more than one service. I'm not only adding the Azure OpenAI chat completion, but I'm going to need to add a plugins for the get date time to tell it that this is another service available for the system. I can come after this line and put another dot and say add a plugin or something like that. That is not possible, because if you put a dot in here, that will be whatever this returns, you're continuing. So that's not going to work. So obviously, we're going to have to remove that from here. We have to do it in a different way. And the way to do that, instead of these 3 lines, we're going to end up using 6 lines. And please allow me to explain what this is. All right. So first of all, I'm not going to say var kernel equals kernel.createBuilder. I'm going to create 3 different things. One of them is a builder, one is a kernel builder, and then finally we create the kernel. So I'm actually taking my time. I'm trying not to do everything in one line like before, which is the var kernel equals kernel.createBuilder. Notice I have a semicolon. I'm not doing a dot. So we're done with this call. This call has nothing else to be added to it. Now I ended up having a builder object for the create builder. Remember in the previous one at the end it says .build. That means we're done. I mean, there are a lot of things you cannot do anymore. You cannot add anything to the kernel after it has been built. So I'm not building, okay? I'm going to take this builder that got created out of the create builder, and I'm going to start adding my services. And there could be like 5, 6, 7 different services you're adding. First of all, we were spoiled before. Remember this config for the configuration builder? I did not need to add that, because that will automatically be picked up using the create builder when you do an add and do a build. But if you want to do it this way using services, then you have to add your configuration builder. So you'll have to add a singleton, pass the iConfiguration interface in here, and we will pass the object for the config for the class to be added as a singleton. And I want to do like before, add the Azure OpenAI chat completion. You'll notice in future examples for plugin, I can add builder services like the HTTP. If I would like to add the HTTP client to be able to call HTTP client factories, for instance, to be able to make an outside call using REST API or GraphQL or something like that. All of these have to be added to the builder before you build it, okay? One of the things that a lot of people forget is line number 29, which is to go ahead and add the kernel itself to the services. If you don't do this line, it will compile and it will run, but when you ask your question, it will give you an error saying, I couldn't retrieve the kernel from the builder that you have actually been created. So don't forget this line to add the kernel as well. And after that, this is the $1 million question for this video, is to actually how to use the kernel builder to add a plugin. So we'll say .plugins, and then there are a lot of different things. Let me put the cursor right before the add in here. We'll do a control space on the keyboard. Notice I can say add from functions, add from object, add from prompt directory, add from type. All of these are possible to do. In my case in here, I've already created a class, the getDateTime. Remember here in the getDateTime, I created a class called getDateTime that has all this information in it. And the namespace for it is called myPlugins. That means I will probably need to go all the way to the top. We'll say using my plugins. There you go. And now hopefully it will see that getDateTime. Just by doing that, I was able to add one of my plugins, which is the only one I have right now, into the kernel builder. Now it's time to do the build, right? So I'm going to create my kernel, a variable called kernel, and I'm going to say kernelBuilder.services.build service provider, calling that function that with its return, I'm going to say get required service and pass the kernel object itself. That is the line that will take all my service providers that I've added, all the different plugins that I've added, everything, and will retrieve me the kernel. And that is the kernel that I will get the iChat completion service. So the code starting like line number 40 all the way to the end will not change. Everything regarding the streaming, the reduction, the usage of the tokens, all the stuff stays the same, okay? The only difference is whenever there is more than one service that needs to be added to the kernel, you'll have to do it this way. You have to create a builder, and then from the builder, the kernel builder, you'll get the kernel from the builder, and then finally, don't forget to get the required service of the kernel into your own variable, and that's the one that you get the iChat completion service. All right, let's see if that will work. Go ahead and save the file. Let me save this file as well. All right, and we'll come in here, we'll say .NET run. And let's see if that works. What do you think? Will it work? What time is it in Orlando? I'm unable to provide real-time information such as the current time. However, Orlando, Florida is in the east. Blah, blah, blah. What happened? I thought we fixed that problem. Why is it still not working? This is a big deal. Please bear with me for 2 more minutes for this video to show you how to fix that problem as well. If I go down to this OpenAI prompt execution settings, remember when I told you there is a whole set of different properties available on this prompt execution settings. And again, if you forget again, just go ahead and push the control key on the keyboard and click on it. And we'll go down all the way till we'll see this part. And these are all the different properties available. One of them should be very interesting for you. And that is right there on line 534. See this guy? Function choice behavior. Function choice behavior. I can tell the system how do you want the LLM to behave as far as function calling, which plugin is nothing but a function call coming in from OpenAI or any other LLM as well. Most of them support function calling as well. So this is an important thing for me. So I'm going to go back to my program, and right after this comma for the temperature, I'm going to add this line. There you go. I'm going to say function choice behavior, and I'm going to choose auto for automatic. That means let the LLM choose which function it needs to call. And 90% of the time it will be automatic because you want the LLM to get the list of plugins that you have, and then it will make a decision. It's the LLM that makes the decision whether it needs to call one of your plugins or not. You have no control over that. But it's important also to show you what else is available. I can say control space after the dot. So there is none. That means you cannot use any plugins if you want to do something like that for a specific case. Or I can say required. That means I can put an array of plugins and saying, even though I have 10 plugins, I want you to only choose from these 3. These are the required 3. Do not go outside of that if you want to. Most of the time, like I said, it will be automatic. That means let the LLM choose. If the plugins exist and it makes sense for the LLM to call it, let it happen. So just by adding this one line, I'm hoping now that it will fix the problem. Let me save the file, and I'm going to go ahead and do a .NET run again. And we'll say, what time is it in Orlando? And notice this time, it will say the current time in Orlando is Sunday, August 31st, blah, 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 Eastern time zones, even in the ZZZ happened as well. Input token is 111. And again, my prompt is a lot less than 111. That means a lot of input came in from the return of my function for get date time as well. That's why it's a lot more than maybe 20 characters or something, or the tokens. All right, so this is an important thing. And if I want to make sure that if it's getting called or not, you can always get to the date time. And inside of the function itself, I usually do that for debugging, by the way. I wanted to come in here with, say, console.writeLine. And in here, there you go. I'm going to say get current date time function called, so that I can tell from the answer if one of my plugins got called or not. Let me save this, and I'll run it one last time. So you say run this guy. And again, what time is it in Orlando? And we'll run this, and notice get current date time function got called, and it will give you the correct answer for right now, and everything is working. So hopefully that gives you a quick idea what exactly is a plugin, how the minimum amount of code to get just one plugin to get called on your behalf, and go for it. Hopefully this was useful. The next video I'm going to add 3 or 4 more plugins, so it makes it more interesting as well. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, and I look forward to creating the next one really quickly. Thank you.